Orb on the movements of the earth, season 1, episode 1. To obtain bread, one offers coin. To obtain rights, one offers taxes. To obtain which, one offers labor. What is the value of a human soul? And what am I looking at? What are you doing and why are you doing it? Everything. You must give up everything. Orb on the movements of the earth. This is like a very dark, what is the value of a human soul, actually? We're gonna find out if the earth is flat or not. But first, we're gonna find out if this thing can go all the way into your mouth. What a crazy opening sequence. There are probably a lot of costs of truth. I mean, like, it doesn't actually cost anything. Actually, it's just out there. But that still doesn't mean it's easy to obtain. It's sort of like there's a radio frequency where if you tune into it, you'll get it. But then there's like a billion other radio frequencies. And there's also a lot of noise interference. There's what people want the truth to be. There are partial truths. There are truths that need to be applied to the right situation. I think what it actually comes down to is you have to give up a lot of very strong, very powerful human urges for something like comfort. I mean, just at the very beginning, to learn something means starting with the fact that you don't know. And to not know something registers emotionally as a threat. And the more it pertains to things that are fundamental to human life, the bigger that threat seems to be. So if it's something about how you function, or something connected to your social world, something that gives you a feeling of purpose, something that gives you a feeling of pride, to know, to be in the know, something that helps you feel like you belong, something that lets you escape doing the things you feel you really need to do. If you have some deep-seated, heartfelt feeling of wanting to be great and be in service, and someone hands you an untruth to fight for and tells you your journey is over, it's tempting to go down that road because you felt so lost without that feeling for so long. What's the alternative? Returning to the abyss of I just don't know anything? It means returning to that uncomfortable place again and again and again in what sometimes feels like an endless, pointless pursuit, even when no one understands you. And actually, socially, which I think this probably will uncover, if you uncover and are vocal about your beliefs, if there's a critical mass against you, you risk your own life. It actually can be a real physical threat. Or you could just skip that and get half of the way there, most of the way there, part of the way there, start with some diluted form of the thing. So like there actually can be a vehicle that is trying to help explore truth, but then you end up fighting for the name of the pursuit of that truth rather than the truth itself, even as the group moves in all sorts of wild directions. And this mechanism, this desire, it plays all sorts of sleights of hand. Like you can rally behind the cause of there is no truth and there's absolute no meaning to anything as the truth, as that faction you're fighting for, nerfing the pursuit of truth with the idea that everyone has their own truth and whatever you believe is the truth. I don't need to look for the truth and do all this hard work if I can just decide what the truth is. And I have my version of the truth and you have your version of the truth. I'm a good person because I know the truth. I mean, there's just so many pitfalls and you have to fight that again and again and again and again. The whole time your emotions are being assaulted from within and from without to get you to just settle here and fight for this wrong. Falling for things like this is true because this person is successful. It's in a book, so it's true. It's in data, so it must be true. There is a tremendous amount of like anti-inertia for the pursuit of truth and incredible inertia for paths of false truth that like ultimately you're picking up a very, very Sisyphean mantle that you probably will have to carry for your whole life because you never make it. It's a process. So, I mean, short answer, a lot. Some are in the kingdom of P. This is sort of a fictional land, I guess. Historical fiction. Some of us not living so good. Others of us living very good. You need to trade your labor for coin. I guess we're just torturing. I guess there will be torture. This is a science, a type of science. The thought of infection, I mean the pain, the absolute pain, the devastating pain. For real? I mean, I would think it's the pain. Like the excruciating pain of losing your fingernails and the lingering pain of not having fingernails and infection. And also every girl you meet like, why don't you have fingernails? Now I'll get annoying real fast. So many girls I've met have asked me why my fingernails are white. Yeah. Right, that makes the most sense. Yeah, you were overcomplicating it. You were thinking you needed to give like a deep answer. Pretty simple. Oh no! Oh, it's church torture. Well, then it's okay. That's fine. You gotta torture for God. Oh no! I didn't know it was gonna be this kind of show. I thought this was going to be a lighthearted, whimsical romp through the world of science. This is not a lighthearted, whimsical romp through the world of science. Oh, he's a believer. Actually, earlier when I was babbling on, one thought that occurred to me was, I think with things like this, it comes down to like the order, the tier of your convictions. It's hard to state what this is, but you can kind of observe it through action. So like, for example, if people just believe whatever is the default system of beliefs for, let's say, their region or their family, whatever, not even judging that, what it just shows is that somehow on whatever level of consciousness or subconsciousness this is, they value the cohesion of their community more than they do like an actual raw pursuit of truth. It strips some of the venom out of it. The initial instinct, I think, when we see people saying things that we just vehemently disagree with, beliefs that rattle us because they're not what we believe, there is an instinct to assign some sort of malevolence or evil to it. Really, it may be just much more simple. And like, people want to get along with their families, you know, and they like having a positive collective vibe from their community. And maybe they just don't know that isn't necessarily a reflection of the total truth. Now, like, of course, that could get really distorted and warped and evil. And that's probably why we have that instinct to immediately treat it as malevolent, because it carries in there somewhere that DNA of danger. But really, on a day-to-day interaction level, or, you know, internet comments or whatever, it's not as deep or as threatening as it might appear. It also is helpful to look at those comments, for example, and imagine that person on a point in a spectrum of their life, affording them the same generosity you might afford yourself. Like, looking back at my timeline, there's definitely points on there where I held beliefs that I certainly don't hold now. And I may have like argued vehemently for those things and thought other people were evil for disagreeing with me. Like, I've been on the whole spectrum, you know? And so I can allow other people to be on that point on the spectrum as well. It's only fair. And you figure a lot of people will just update their beliefs as they go. And also, here's a scary one. Speaking of, you must burn yourself at the altar of truth. There's a very good chance that in this issue you're fighting about, that person may be you. But for someone to have this level of conviction, what that means is it's at a very deep level. It's probably very well thought out, or at least very deeply felt as to why it's important. I think actually at a very deep level, there's an argument for truth is very, very close of a thing to concepts of God. It's like we can't conceive fully of what God would mean, just like we can't fully conceive of infinity as more than an abstracted concept. Truth is maybe like one of those things that like you're kind of on the edges of it, and you can feel what truth means, and you can understand some deep objective significance of it, which critically, and this is an interesting depiction of this, is different and separate from religion, but as just like a deep objective value that can be truly heartfelt. And if you have a deep enough one, and it's deeply felt in that way, and if you can sense the beauty of it, that maybe is one of the cures for the things I mentioned earlier of like trying to get ego boosts from being right, feeling like you're part of a movement because otherwise you'd feel useless and lonely. It's kind of like you found a sweeter game. I would say so, yes. You can confiscate my materials, but you can never confiscate the truth. Don't. Eggbod. I'm adding it to my collection. What? Oh my god. I think maybe he enjoys it. The Earth. Oh, that's so cute. I like that answer. That's my new answer. I totally thought of that first. You're a little too abstract with your mustache and mullet. I mean, obviously, that's the real answer. Right. Is this the main character? He's gonna have a very, very cool arc of awakening. Many things will be challenged. This actually is a really interesting thing that gets confused a lot. And it's hard. We're sort of in a vacuum, right? Like, we're just born into this planet. And we have to make decisions, so we gotta know stuff. But one of the pitfalls I see very frequently, and maybe this is more clear outside of the domain of science, though I guess it certainly applies, and more just in the personal life and assessment, is we will get confused about what is true based on what is plausible. So like, if we can form a narrative for the thing, and we can't find any holes in the narrative, given what we know, it just makes so much sense. We like instinctively assign a truth value to it. That was a very well-argued point. He just doesn't have all the pieces. One way I personally often notice this is straight line extrapolations into complex systems. So like, this variable is going down. After 30 years, it will be at 0. Or this thing is going up, so after 30 years, this thing will be way too high. And that's plausible because like, what's going down, it could continue to go down, or it's going up and it can continue to go up. But that's treating the world as if there's only 2 axes, and the world has practically infinite axes. So what happens a lot of the time is things hit a certain low, and that incentivizes action or causes some change, and that change itself loops back into the system. And that also could be an accelerant of the trend, but it also can be a reversal of the trend. And it's very hard to actually like predict accurately. This example is going to sound very obvious in hindsight, but I made some money in 2020 because oil prices went negative. And so many people at the time were like, oil's over, oil's now 0. So I bought oil, and what do you know? Because it was unprofitable to produce oil, people produced less oil as people consumed oil. And so eventually there was not enough demand to meet the oil, and so oil prices started to rise. To make this more controversial, prediction generally, I think, is often just the wrong game, because there's a lot more tangible truth, I think, to be found in processes. And if you do the right processes, that information is largely there, I think, especially as it relates to humanity. And that maybe is the blueprint for being the best equipped and most prepared for the volatility of the things that are more difficult to predict in the future. Correct answer. You're amazing, son. That's his father. That's kind of cheating. You get these answers at home. Also, how do we know the Earth is in the center of the universe? What is the center of the universe then? Already? Alright, at this medieval age, I'm actually okay with university because it actually means something, probably. Let me guess, something to do with the planets. Astronomy. Theology, interesting. Well, what's the difference, right? As we all know, you know there's going to be a great sentence that follows, we all know. God is the center of the universe. Very humble of you. Humble before God. So you admit it. He seems to have a good spirit. The bright kid, good spirit. Maybe that will triumph. But will it triumph? It's so funny how like all these things connect. Because this is My Hero Academia, right? Like it's great to be a hero when hero society aligns with your ideals. What happens to your heroic ideals when hero society gets corrupt or gets weird? Yeah, it's great for you that you have this heart that wants to help people and that is following a path of theology. When the method of which you want to help people is the one that is approved by all your peers and your father. What happens when the method you think will most help people, or let's say you have a devotion to the truth, contradicts with all of this? You know, the praise you're getting, the admiration, the fact that you're a rising star. That's pain. What wins? What's the deeper calling? Do you want to feel good and look right and be respected by your peers, or do you want to fight the battle? He loves it. He loves it. Yeah, this is gonna be a fall. Also, he's not so benevolent after all. So that lucky thing was a deflection. He threw that out there to disguise his true feelings. He's not lucky. He earned this. How much do you believe in this? Will you follow that wherever it takes you? Oh no. There's so much anticipation in this already because I could feel the fall. I could just palpably taste the crash. Look at you, Kochansky, you simpleton. A little bit of Death Note here, right? He's exactly right. Yes. Well, it's kind of blasphemous, but... You messed up, you simpleton. That inner monologue also was interesting because there's sort of two things he's following. One is like the sort of life mastery path. Like if you just apply reason to your world, you can affect it and you can rise in it. And then there's the other part of it, which is like being rational, understanding truth. And you can see how like those two things might split. They will likely diverge because from a survival and thriving perspective in society, what probably makes sense is just like paying lip service to everything. Don't rock the boat. There's some things you can't say out loud. What? What are you hiding? Is that fingernail dude? Oh, thank God. Very generous of you. Just don't ask him to pick anything up, because he has no grip. He clearly loves astronomy, though, and that was his biggest mistake. I wish I had this kind of conflict about studying. It's like how Darwin wrote on his pros and cons of getting married. Con, less money for books. Anyway, if he's meeting the heretic, I can sort of guess where that might go. That's an interesting claim. I think this actually goes back to that exact tier thing. When you think about other people and what appear to be irrational behaviors, there's something that sort of clicks when you realize that their stated goal is not their actual goal. And so what they're doing maybe is very rational. In fact, it probably is rational towards the actual goal. There's sort of like two categories. There's the real underlying motivational hierarchy. And then there's the stated, maybe even personally believed hierarchy. And though this is a little bit terrifying to realize at first, they're not always exactly the same. And you can sometimes backwards engineer what it actually is based on the pattern of action. I have a theory that people actually are very rational. It's just that they're being irrational to hidden goals. I think irrationality is easier to find in things that are like sort of not human or sort of later complex systems that are bigger, kind of outgrew our natural evolution in biology. But like on biological matters, our family, our friends, our social world, our actions, our activities, since those are more local and more understandable and we have more genetic history there, they're more deeply ingrained and more intuitively natural. Somebody will be in a terrible relationship and they'll complain like, oh, I wish I could find someone better for me. I want to just be stable and have a family instead of repeating the cycle with this crazy person again and again and again. And you're looking at them like, yeah, in that case, you should obviously break up. But the relationship continues, or they break up and they immediately get back together just to continue the cycle over and over again. And you're like, man, this person's being really irrational. When actually maybe the way to get to what's happening is that person just values whatever they're getting out of the relationship more than what they're saying they want. And when that stops being true, they will likely stop doing it because they actually are rational. They're just not like consciously rational. This is a scary test you can give yourself, right? Like you can look at what you think you want and what you say you want, and then look at your actions and see where they don't line up. If you're brave enough, what are the things you actually want? Sometimes I have conversations with people that border on fixation on the fact that the world is unfair, how it's impossible to get ahead in life, or like with the relationship example, there will just be some very specific problem they're putting in front of you. And as an outside observer, you're like, well, maybe that's not the whole story, or maybe you could try this. But then it seems like there's not even really a consideration happening about what you're saying. It all kind of loops back into the same conclusion, even if like the conclusion isn't compatible, and it's easy to get frustrated in those moments. But then you're like, actually, this is not really a desire to improve this thing. There is an attachment to whatever this is, if it's that life is unfair. Maybe it's that you don't want to face what it would take from you, what it would cost to get the things you want to get and do the things you want to do. The responsibility you'd have to take and the personal ego blows you'd have to eat. Maybe it's not a question of striving, but a question of like staying comfortable. It gets weird sometimes arguing with people, trying to convince them that they're not doomed, that there's hope for them. Like, why do I have to fight so hard to try to convince you of something that is great for you? Well, it's just because they don't want it, at least not right now. Sometimes it seems like people don't want to succeed. They want to be right about how the thing is impossible. There's a certain type of this, and I'm guilty of this myself in certain ways, in certain moments, of like, see, I did everything you said and it still didn't work. Metaphorically cutting off your fingernails to spite your hand. I think what this just reveals for him is that actually he just wants to study astronomy and he could feel the pull of it and what it has in store for him. It's also more than the thing. It's not just astronomy. It's deeper things he's extracting from it, ways his character is growing from its pursuit. And theology seems like what he expected or what he thought or what he's been telling himself is the pursuit that would do those things. Instincts and rationality are often phrased as opposites, but sometimes your instincts are rational. It's your framing of the overall picture that's incorrect. And then Hubert changed everything.
フベルトさん、元学者で異端者って一体どんな人なんだ?
You mean former heretic and current scholar? You have to renounce scholarship too? This is what happens to you. Stop asking questions. If you're not with us, you're against us. Oh god, that's horrible. Yeah, they totally deserved it. Oh no, he's way too questioning for this world. Maybe future adversary. Maybe we're going to be in that same room. Seems likely. There's real stakes to this pursuit. It's not just like social discomfort. It's the discomfort of burning flames. He is big, yeah. What's interesting about Rafal is he's already farther ahead than he realizes. He's already having these doubts. Okay. Very realist. Speaking of practical, is this the beginning of a beautiful friendship? Maybe we could be real with Hubert. This is great, yeah, because you can see right through him. And people spend so much time buttering Rafal up. This guy's no nonsense. Astronomy. You're in great danger. This is a weird thing for him, too, because he knows the dangers of this road, but also we love science. My heretical research. He's taking a very big leap of faith telling this kid. He just said what he had to say. This is not very rational. Except that it is, based on his values. No one will believe you even if you tell them. Maybe, I guess he sees something in him. Oh, because we have leverage. It all comes down to leverage. I don't know, this guy's much better. I must finish my work. Man. Yes, he's made that very clear. Suddenly astronomy not looking so fun anymore. Nothing about you seems unreasonable so far, so. Is this the beginning of a beautiful friendship? If Rafal was so inclined, there is a way he can report this dude as a heretic with no danger to him, although he's a kid. We're revisiting our opinions on burning people at the stake. But he also likes astronomy. Yeah, here it is. Right. The calling. Let's learn the spot first, at least. We can learn the spot. Worth it. Wow, all it took. He got turned around so quickly. Man, my boy Rafal is getting force-fed the red pill. It's interesting, he takes compliments differently. I mean, maybe he's afraid for his life, but usually when he's complimented, there's that thing of like, oh, you're too kind. Please continue to adore me. But this seems more like genuine gratitude. He's not playing the role of astronomy like he's playing the role of good student and servant of God. Which, speaking of which, I think theology is a great field of study. I mean, I think it's a little weird how it's segmented now, how theology and philosophy are different. I don't think they necessarily need to be. But at a very general level, just looking at it as a search for truth, then that's a really beautiful thing. And even if it's very specific to religion, well, there's still a lot of value you can get out of religion as just like a great corpus of lessons about humanity that has been passed on from generation to generation. It's just obviously not what his calling is. He's doing the classic thing of like, I gotta do what society respects without any sort of deeper connection to it, which is tough because often like that's just kicking that can down the road, assuming in the meantime you're not able to answer that question for yourself in a different way. It also means in a lot of cases, just through natural inertia, you end up becoming a defender and proponent of the thing that you yourself don't really understand. Sort of like how people in unsatisfying marriages will push other people to get married as fast as possible. It's weird how often people end up becoming soldiers in the fight to defend ideas that aren't even theirs to begin with. The thing is, I think he is willing to die for this. I just think he wants to finish it first so we can get it out into the world. Dangerous question, Rafal. Heart-shaped. And the center is love. Wrong, you idiot. Simpleton. He drew that so perfectly with that stick. That's amazing. This kid really is talented. I mean, it is special. It's the center in some ways. That's an interesting question. Get out of here with their subjectivism. Very interesting. Oh my god. I'm never going to get to the show. It's going to take me 4 hours to do every episode. Oh, you just undid your whole thing, man. You just ruined your own life. Wow. And we're a lot alike, it turns out. Well, that's an interesting way to put that and think about it. Yes and no. God, this is so complicated. It's not that the shape of the universe is one way or the other stemming from what you think is beautiful. In fact, it's a reasoning error I really don't like, where, well, if that were true, I wouldn't like it, so that can't be true. That would be highly inconvenient for me and what I want to believe. But I don't think that's actually what he meant. Also, what Rafal said, whether it's beautiful or not, depends on the sense of the individual. I have sort of a hot take theory on this, which is that even a lot of the things we think are subjective are not actually subjective, or there's a more objective grounding than we often realize. So like taking beauty and appreciation of art, we almost treat it as if it's magic, like it's completely disconnected from reality somehow. It exists outside of space and time and humanity and our minds and biology. There is likely always a reason why we like something, and the things we like are probably going to fall into very understandable patterns. What makes it confusing and seem subjective or seem relative is that people are at different stages or different levels about what will be most resonant to them based on where they are in the stage of life and what their preoccupations are. As an analogy, water is objectively objectively good for humans. There is a reason why water tastes good. It's very connected to the properties of water and human biology and the fact that we need water and we have an instinct for survival, etc., etc. But there are various levels of thirst. Like if you are well hydrated, it's different than if you are finding water in a desert. A personal example, I watched a lot of anime, obviously, and that includes a lot of shonen anime, which includes fighting. And there was a time in my life where I really loved the fighting, and I would have said that's the point of it. That's why I like it. Looking back at it, my personal theory is that fighting for me at the time wasn't actually about the fighting, because I don't really have an urge to like go beat people up. It's more like a representation, an emotionally, intuitively understandable visual representation of things that are sort of deeper and more pervasive to human experience, like basic competency, independence, not being helpless, being able to affect change in the world. It's like a very digestible, resonant version of those things. Having abstracted those things so much again and again and again, and also, I guess, sort of meeting that need for myself of basic competency in the world, the most pressing need becomes something else. And I then am more receptive and have stronger engagement with the things that model the most pressing needs of this era of my life. The value is in those things already, and I think we actually can objectively evaluate things across the things that they are trying to provide or the things that they can provide for people, about like how well does it do that and how well does it capture something accurate. So there is an objective scale to art. It's not totally subjective. It's not just based on your whims. Or at the very least, it's less subjective than I often see being discussed, which is really cool because I think that gives us something to sink our teeth into. We've like gained a little bit of ground on the way we can discuss things and talk about things and evaluate things. And we can take a little bit of power back from that whole thing of like, well, my truth is just what I create, which just in general I don't like. It's highly plausible. Hit him with it, Hubert. The Earth. Watch him immediately realize it's correct from what he knows. Oh no! Oh no! It suddenly makes sense, all these discrepancies. He was so close already. My boy's sweating. Man, you just gave him this disease against his consent. You gave him this brain virus, which happens to be correct, but it's still a brain virus. They take off your fingernails. Heliocentrism. Chapter 1. That was crazy. This is a happy song, but Rafal's life just got turned upside down. His life will never be the same again. I want to say that there are big choices to make, but based on what we've seen of him, there may not be a choice. Like, you can fight it in the short term, but it's just gonna like weigh on you as a point of friction until you resolve it. For a different character, it could go differently, right? Again, it comes back to like that weighting of what's important. Rafal has a pretty deep one for just curiosity and exploration, and like an intuitive appreciation of the beauty of discovery and the messages that we get from the universe. Very exciting. This is a great premise. It's a great way to take something that's very relevant to everyone that I think maybe is not explored enough or could always use re-exploring, but in a way that gives it the emotional stakes, because it's not just like, oh, I'm wrong and I'm uncomfortable, and more like, geez, if I say this, I'm going to be burned at the stake. And you thought the orphanage was bad.